Everyone, my name is Del Spoonmore. I'm here to talk about several things. First, I'm going to talk a little about who I am and what I'm doing here. So this is me and my family, my wife Carrie, and our 4 children. 3 years ago, we started growing our own food. And this is what our backyard looked like when we started. And this is what it looked like a couple years later. And through this process, I learned a lot, and I had to memorize a lot. And there were a lot of calculations I had to make and a lot of things I had to do. And all while I was doing it, I was thinking software would make this so much easier. Software would make this so much easier. I've worked in software since I stepped out of high school, essentially, and it's all I've ever known. And back then, I started thinking about the app I would like to build. But I did not have the coding skills at that time to do so. I've worked primarily in test automation or quality assurance throughout my career. I've done some work in product management, things like that, but I've never done the type of coding it required to build something like I wanted to build. So last year, at the encouragement of my team, and I'll get more into that here in a minute, I started working on building my first mobile app. And as Chase mentioned, this is the app that we released. I say we because my wife and I worked on it together. I'll talk a bit about that as well. But this is the app that we released just last month. So this app helps people grow food. It will guide you through growing over 40 different vegetables and managing over 30 different pests in the garden. And this is just the first version of the app. What I'm working on now is doing things like telling people when they need to water based on how much it's rained around them and when they need to plant things based on where they are and their weather conditions, things like that. So that's where I'm wanting to go with this app, but I don't want to get too much into the app today. I'm really here to talk about how I learned to code because I've had a lot of people ask me how I did it, and that's really what I'm here to share today. So I'm going to start off by kind of outlining the 5 steps here. So the first one is to get inspired. For me, it went back to the garden. I had an app I wanted to build. I had a goal in mind. That was the passion that drove me to learn how to code. In the past, when I had tried to learn, I had failed because it was a college course where I'm building a calculator, and I just didn't care about it. It took me having something I cared about in order for me to do the steps I needed to do in order to learn. So step number 2 was find a mentor. In the past, whenever I tried to learn, it's a pretty overwhelming landscape when you walk into it. There's all these frameworks and all these terms and all these things you've got to learn, and it's overwhelming. If you have a mentor, they're going to help guide you through that process. Learning foundational principles, that's another important part. And I'm going to go ahead and go into details into each of these now. So with a mentor, what they're going to do is they're going to help guide your path. As I mentioned, there's a lot of different things out there. When I first stepped into this, even just when I started thinking about building a mobile app, I did not know where to start, whether it was Xamarin or if I needed to learn Android development or iOS development or React Native or all these different things out there, right? So the mentor helped guide me, Chase helped guide me along on that. They're also going to be there to answer your questions. So if you run into problems, you're not just I still go to Stack Overflow a lot, but if I have uncertainty about something or if there isn't a clear defined answer, I know I have someone that I can go to that knows what they're talking about and is going to give me a good answer. They're also going to be able to review your code. So if I make a mistake along the way, he's going to be there to let me know, hey, this may work, but there's a better way you can do it, or just you never know what you're going to learn along the way. And then also to encourage. I mean, I failed at programming when I first started trying to learn back 10 years ago in college, and that stuck with me. There's not a lot of things I failed at in my life. I don't say that boastful. It's just, so I failed at that, and it stuck with me, and it was in the back of my mind. And the reason why I hadn't started trying to learn to code before then, or before last year, was because I wanted to wait until I had all the time to do it. And what I learned was that just wasn't going to happen until I made it. And Chase being there to encourage me along the way went a long way towards keeping me focused on that goal and making me feel like I was on the right path. So learning the foundational principles was an important first step because you've got to know the language, you've got to know what you're looking at in order to begin. I had done a lot of college, I'd done some college courses in the past, and I'd done some tinkering, all throughout my life. So I had some foundation there. I knew what variables were, I knew what loops were, things like that. But still, I needed to get better at it. So I used codeschool.com and other websites like that in the beginning just to get familiar with some of the concepts and just get coding again, just to get my fingers used to doing it. Pluralsight was also a huge help. I watched so many Pluralsight videos. Also YouTube, though. You don't have to pay for content. Wes Boss has a great series called JavaScript 30, where you do 30 different JavaScript challenges that are pretty simple, or There's basic little things, and he guides you through it, and you learn a lot along the way. Also, Fun Function is one of my favorite YouTube channels, and it really deals with more high-level concepts. He doesn't really do tutorials as much. It's more just high-level programming concepts. But there's all sorts of channels out there, and these are just a couple, but there's thousands of channels out there that can help you. The next step for me was to find a framework, because I wanted to build a mobile app. And through talking to Chase and some of my other coworkers, I landed on Ionic as kind of what I wanted to start with. So once I discovered that, I went to the Ionic homepage, and they have really good tutorials there that walk you through building simple apps. They have other apps that you can basically clone, and you can start to dissect them and figure out how they work. And that's how I started learning. I just started taking apart example apps and changing things and seeing what happened when I changed it, and then learning from there. Once I discovered that it was Ionic I needed to learn Angular first, because that's kind of the technology that drives it, or that's the language behind it, I guess I should say. So I turned to Pluralsight. Deborah Kurata and John Papa have amazing courses on Pluralsight that walk you through building an Angular app from the very beginning all the way through to the end. Those were invaluable as well. And again, on the free side, there's plenty of YouTube tutorials, Level Up Tuts, and then here's a couple other that I mentioned that are specific to mobile and Ionic. But these are the people that I learned from. And then once you do that, once you start to, okay, let me go to this one. So then another thing is Techlahoma events, things just like this. Aaron, I've listened to you speak. I learned a lot from you. There's other people in this room that I've learned from. Also, if you don't have a mentor already, it's a great place to meet a mentor. I've met several friends through this organization that have helped me and taught me things and have introduced me to people, and it's been invaluable. So other ways to learn, because I learned a long time ago that if I stare at a computer for 20 hours a day, my head is going to go crazy. That's what led me to the garden to begin with. That's why I started gardening, was because I've been on this mission to figure out how to help with anxiety and depression, because when I stare at a computer too much, that flares up. So I didn't want to go down that path again. I did a little bit, I'll admit it. I stared at a computer a lot. There were days I geeked out for 20 hours, but I tried to minimize that. And to do that, I use things like podcasts. So if I'm out in the garden, I would listen to podcasts. Syntax is my favorite. DevChat has a lot of great ones as well. But I'd be out in the garden working, and I would still be learning about development. I just wouldn't be staring at a computer while I'm doing it. Also Twitter. So everyone that I found a course from, so Deborah Kurata, John Papa, the people I mentioned all throughout before, I would find them on Twitter. And then I would read everything they wrote, and I would follow the people they retweeted, and I just immersed myself in this. So instead of reading the news or reading, just Facebook or whatnot, I would focus that energy on learning what it is I wanted to learn, and through the same mediums that other people were learning as well. So I use Twitter, just not for reading politician stuff. So I focus just reading, what software developers are talking about and what it is they're interested about. And then also that's going to point you back to blogs as well. So all these people that put out this content generally have a blog as well. So you find that, and then it's just this whole ecosystem of continual learning if you just immerse yourself in it. So that's kind of the practicality behind how I learned, but there's some other lessons, around this that I want to talk about. So the first one is that a lot has changed. When I first tried learning coding forever ago, there was a lot of things that were different than now. I know the frameworks and all the new things make things seem a little overwhelming, and it adds complexity, but once you get through it and you understand why they're there and what they're there for, you realize things are a lot easier than they used to be. And building this mobile app, all the components were already built for me. I didn't have to build a grid or a slider or any of those things. I just hook in what's already built, and it makes it to where I can focus on the problem I'm trying to solve, which is helping people grow food and not how to build the best grid. So that's one thing that's changed. It's made this a lot easier because I have a tendency to go down a rabbit hole where if I can build a grid, I'm probably going to spend 2 months on it and go way overboard, or I'm going to get lost. I'm going to lose sight of what it is I'm trying to do. So having that abstracted out really helped me out. Another thing is that the patience is a virtue that it took me a long time to learn, and I still have a long way to go. But walking away can be extremely powerful. If you get stuck on a problem and you just keep hammering away at it, you can't figure it out, just go walk away. Do something else that uses another part of your brain. Go wash the dishes, go water your garden, just whatever it is that makes it through. You don't have to think about what you're doing. That is the key to figuring out the problem, because you rest that part of your brain And then when you come back to the problem, usually for me, I'll be out in the garden watering. The solution will come to me. I'll drop the watering can, sprint inside as fast as I can, start typing, and voila, it worked. And that is something that took me a long time to learn, because in the past, I would keep trying to figure something out. I would get frustrated. I would get stressed that I can't figure it out. I would start to think that I'm stupid because I can't figure it out. And then that would snowball into negative thoughts, and then nothing productive would come out of that. Now I just trust the fact that, okay, I'm going to walk away from this. I don't like that I'm walking away. I'm mad that I'm walking away from it, but I'm going to do it. And I'm going to go play with my daughter or do something. And then when I come back, I know the answer is going to be there. And it took me a long time to learn that lesson, and that's really what patience was for me. Don't get stuck. This really ties into that. Don't be stuck in a problem for more than 30 minutes to an hour before you either take a break or reach out to a mentor. I tried to play tough guy with it in the beginning, and I would hammer through a problem for a day, and then when I got the solution from my coworker the next day, I felt pretty silly because I could have saved myself a lot of trouble, and they didn't think any less of me for asking. That was something I had to get over. Don't obsess over picking a language or a framework. I know I mentioned that you need to pick one, but don't. I spent a lot of time in the past too obsessing over thinking about what I need to learn or what framework or what language. It doesn't matter. Just pick something and get started. Once you start coding, you'll learn what it is you like or don't like about that, and then you can evolve from there. I'm in Ionic now, but I wouldn't be surprised if I switched to React Native or something like that, just to get more of a native feel to my app. But I started with Ionic, and I'm happy with that, and I don't have any regrets about it. So don't be too concerned about getting stuck in the wrong framework. As long as you're making progress, that's the important part. Code something every day. So I had days where I felt like if I couldn't code a whole bunch of stuff, I didn't want to code at all, and that wasn't very productive. So I try and code a little bit every day now, or even if it's not on my app, just do some sort of coding every single day, because then that helps. Then you're repeating those things that you're learning, and you're just getting more experience with it. And then fight through imposter syndrome. You're gonna feel like you don't know what you're doing at times, and sometimes you don't know what you're doing, but it's okay. You don't have to know everything, and it's okay to not know everything. So don't feel like you're a failure just because you can't figure something out. And then the last thing is that prior experiences were way more valuable than I realized. When I was a kid, I spent all of my time, building websites and trying to figure out how to make video games work different, and just doing all these things that all of these skills played into everything I do today now, and I had no idea that I already had all those skills. I used to write batch files to do things, there's all sorts of things, like all those scripting skills I had have all become valuable to me now, and I discounted how much those were worth in the past. So yes, I had to learn a lot of JavaScript, but my HTML, my CSS knowledge that foundation was already there, and that really helped me out. So lastly, I'm going to leave you with this quote, and this was really the idea that led to me learning to code and to build a mobile app. If there's a problem that you see in the world, if there's something you'd like to see different, we live in an age that is unprecedented for people like us. We have never had the power that we have today to change the world. If you get an app into the App Store, you are in front of probably billions of people now. I don't know, millions or billions, a lot of people. And all it takes is one app that can change the world. My hope is that my app can help people grow food. Whatever your passion is, start putting time into building that, because, like I said, we've never had an opportunity like we have now to make an impact on the world. And we've been given all these blessings and these skills and these talents. And for me, I feel like if I don't do something with them, and if I don't make an impact on the world with them, then what am I doing here? That's the way I look at it. So anyway, are there any questions? Here's my contact information if anyone has any questions about anything. You can also follow on our website, seedtospoon.net. I mostly talk about gardening and whatnot on there, but I also talk about other things. So, yes?
Do you have any tips for finding a mentor?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, if you don't have one at your place of employment, come to Tucklahoma events. I'll help you. If you're listening right now, reach out to me, email me, and I'll help you out. I mean, there are so many people that are willing to help. Aaron over here, he does talks all the time. The free code, all of these events are geared towards helping people learn to code. There's this whole ecosystem of people here to help you. So I guess that's what I'd say about finding a mentor if you don't have one where you work. Yes?
I appreciate that kind comments. This is more a comment.
Not yet. I didn't sort of heard about it.
I've seen you done some stuff. It's an event at the school recently, like a Skype thing. It's a wonderful place to just volunteer. Teachers can request you. You're working with students. I've done 1 to 2 things over the last year. It's not an everyday type of thing, but it's a wonderful place to start. If you want to join any type of mentorship program, just check out Code.org. You can go from there, but I love the mentorship thing. It's awesome.
Just in case anyone couldn't hear that with the microphone, Aaron was talking about code.org as a place that you can go to sign up to do mentorship and whatnot. And also, I'm glad you mentioned that. There are a lot of programs that work with schools and high schools throughout the city as well, to where you can, if you are interested in being a mentor for kids even, you can get hooked up with these schools and you can go talk in front of them. Like Aaron mentioned, we both did some of that earlier this year. And that's really rewarding because you can see these kids that are like us, you know, and they love computers, but they have no idea what to do with it. And they're constantly told that being on computers is a bad thing and being on their iPad all the time is a bad thing. And I agree with some of that to that extent, but still, them having a role model and something to look up to and say, I can be that when I get older. I can build an app. I can do something when I get older. That's such a cool experience because you can see that light bulb clicking in their head as you're talking to them because they don't know anyone that makes software or mobile apps. I mean, we live in this world, so we're used to being around people like us. But I remember back when I was in junior high, I didn't know anybody that worked on computers or did anything. I mean, I was kind of on my own. So, yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, Aaron. Any other questions or comments or anything? All right. Well, thanks for the time today, everyone.